I never thought I'd hear those words come from my own son's mouth. From now on, Mom, I want your paycheck sent directly to my account. For a moment, I actually laughed. I thought he was joking, some kind of cruel, misplaced humor after a long day. But when I looked up, Ethan wasn't smiling. His eyes were flat, cold, like I was just another person owing him money, not the woman who'd given him life. I felt my throat tighten. Ethan, what are you talking about? He crossed his arms and leaned against the doorway like he owned the place. You wouldn't even have that job if it weren't for me. I stayed home to take care of things after Dad died. You owe me. Owe him? My hands trembled around the mug I was holding. The coffee inside rippled, tiny dark waves catching the kitchen light. He was serious. For 25 years, I'd worked 2 jobs to put him through school. I'd sold jewelry, furniture, even my car so he could stay in college when the tuition bill came due. And now this? I tried to stay calm. Ethan, honey, you never had to take care of me. You were my son. That's not how. He cut me off with a sharp sigh. Just transfer it, Mom. It's easier that way. He pulled his phone from his pocket and started typing something. I can send you the account details. You can set it up automatically. No more late payments. Payments? The word hit me like a slap. Ethan, I'm not paying you, I whispered. That's when she appeared, Marissa. She strolled into the room wearing my old cardigan, her hair still damp from the shower upstairs. She smiled, but it wasn't kind. It's just practical, Linda, she said softly. You're not getting any younger. Ethan's just trying to make things easier. The way she said my name, Linda, not Mom, made my stomach turn. I didn't ask you, I said quietly, staring at her. She shrugged and wrapped her arm around Ethan's waist. We're just thinking about your future. Maybe it's time you let him handle things. You've done enough, haven't you? Her voice was honeyed, sweet, but the words were poison. Ethan didn't look at me. He just nodded like she'd spoken some universal truth. My chest ached. How could he let her speak for him like that? I wanted to scream, to shake him and ask what happened to the boy who used to bring me flowers from the backyard and tell me I was his favorite person in the world. But I couldn't. My voice wouldn't come. So I just said, I'll think about it, and turned toward the sink, pretending to rinse the empty mug. The sound of their laughter behind me made the kitchen feel smaller, colder. I could feel their presence even after they left the room. The echo of Ethan's words kept replaying in my mind. You owe me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my small bedroom, the same one I'd shared with his father for 20 years before cancer took him. The walls still smelled faintly of the cedar oil he used on his hands. On the nightstand sat a faded photograph, Ethan on his 5th birthday, frosting smeared on his cheeks, grinning between us. I traced his little face with my finger and whispered, What happened to you? My heart wanted to believe this was just a phase, that he was under stress, that Marissa had filled his head with nonsense. But deep down, something colder whispered a different story. This wasn't new. This was planned. Around midnight, I finally stood up and walked to my desk. I opened my laptop, logged into my online banking, and froze. The balance didn't look right. Half my savings, gone. I scrolled through the transaction history, my pulse hammering in my ears. There it was, a transfer from my account to another, a familiar name. Ethan Martin. My fingers went numb. My vision blurred for a moment as I stared at the screen. He'd already done it. I clicked open the details. The authorization date was nearly 3 months ago. Somehow he'd added himself as a secondary account holder. He'd planned this long before today's request. I felt the air leave my lungs. How had I not seen this? Every password, every form, every statement. I'd trusted him with all of it. He'd helped me set things up when the bank switched to new online systems last winter. That was when he did it. The walls felt like they were closing in. I pressed my hand to my mouth to stop the sob from escaping. Then I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. His door closing. Laughter. A woman's voice. Marissa. They were still awake. Still laughing. I shut my laptop slowly, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped it. A bitter thought crept in like a whisper. This isn't confusion anymore. This is betrayal. I turned off the light, sat in the dark, and listened to their voices fade down the hall. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument could have been, but somewhere inside that silence a new sound began to stir. Not a sob this time, but a quiet, steady beat. Anger. The next morning, I checked my account again and realized Ethan hadn't just taken my savings, he'd changed the mailing address on every single financial document I owned. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a blank stare, my laptop open but untouched. The sunlight through the window felt cruelly bright, like it didn't belong in the same world I'd woken up to. My heart was pounding and my stomach twisted with a sick kind of dread. Half my savings gone. Every mailing address changed. Ethan's name on my account. I replayed it over and over, hoping I'd made some mistake. But deep down, I knew. My son had done this deliberately. Around 9 a.m., I called the bank. My voice shook, but I tried to sound calm. The woman on the line was polite, too polite. Her tone the kind they use when they sense something's terribly wrong but can't say it outright. "Yes, Mrs. Martin," she said. "Ethan Martin has been listed as a joint account holder since December." He presented the paperwork in person. "In person?" I whispered. "I never signed anything." She hesitated. "Well, ma'am, the forms we have on record appear to have your signature." I froze. My own signature, forged. My hands trembled so badly I had to put the phone down. I couldn't breathe for a few seconds. My own son had gone behind my back months ago and signed my name. I needed help. I couldn't face him alone. That afternoon, I drove to see Mr. Cooper, my late husband's old friend. He used to handle small accounting jobs for local families, and I trusted him. The drive to his home felt endless, every red light stretching my heartbeat thinner. He opened the door with the same calm smile he'd had at my husband's funeral. "Linda," he said gently, "you look pale. What's happened?" Inside, I handed him the bank statements, my voice cracking as I explained everything. He put on his glasses and read carefully, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. When he finally looked up, his face was grave. "He didn't just add himself," he said quietly. "He forged your signature on 2 separate authorizations. That's a serious crime." "A crime?" I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "He's my son." Mr. Cooper nodded, choosing his words carefully. "I know. But right now, you have to think like someone protecting herself, not like a mother." I sat there in silence, staring at the neat stack of papers between us. For years, those papers had been my safety, my future, my home. Now they felt like evidence in a case I didn't want to admit was real. Later that evening, I confronted Ethan. He was sitting on the couch, scrolling on his phone. Marissa was beside him, legs crossed, acting as though she owned the place. The TV played softly in the background, but the air was tense, heavy. "Ethan," I began, my voice shaking, "I spoke to the bank today." He barely looked up. "Oh? Finally decided to transfer your check?" "No," I said quietly. "I decided to ask why my savings are gone, and why your name is on my account." That got his attention. His jaw tightened. "You're overreacting, Mom. It's just easier for me to manage things." "Manage?" I snapped. "You forged my signature. You took my money." Marissa laughed under her breath, a low, mocking sound. "Maybe you forgot you signed it, Linda. You know how memory gets at your age." My face burned. "Don't talk to me like that." Ethan shot her a warning look, but his voice stayed cold. "You're twisting this. I'm trying to help you. You've been overwhelmed since Dad died." I stared at him, disbelief turning to fury. "You're not helping me, Ethan. You're stealing from me." He sighed and rubbed his temples, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Mom, calm down. We'll talk about this later. I've got things to do." And just like that, he walked upstairs. I stood there shaking. Marissa smiled faintly and followed him, whispering something I couldn't make out. The sound of the bedroom door closing upstairs was the loudest silence I'd ever heard. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway, gripping the steering wheel until my fingers ached. The house glowed softly behind me. My home, the one I'd worked my whole life for. And yet it suddenly felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. Mr. Cooper's words echoed in my head. "Protect yourself." By the next morning, I'd made a decision. I went back to see him, carrying every document I could find: bank statements, property titles, even old tax forms. I needed proof, a trail, something that showed what he'd done. He spread them out on his desk and nodded slowly. "We'll build a record," he said, quietly. "Don't accuse him again until you have everything in writing." I agreed. It was the only way. But deep down, I already felt the ground shifting under me. Ethan wasn't just being selfish. He was planning something bigger. Later that week, as I was sorting through old mail, I found a letter from the county office. It had been forwarded from my old address, one I hadn't used in years. I frowned, tearing it open. Inside was a notification. Request for property title review. Applicant, Ethan Martin. My vision blurred for a second. Property title review? My house? He wasn't just after my paycheck or my savings. He wanted everything. I dropped the letter, my hands trembling. My son wasn't just betraying me, he was preparing to take my home out from under me. And this time, I didn't know if I could stop him. I dropped the letter onto the kitchen table and just stared at it. Request for property title review. Applicant, Ethan Martin, my son's name. On my house. For a long moment, all I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock above the doorway. It was as if time had stopped to mock me. Then, slowly, the world came back in sharp pieces, the sound of a car passing outside, the faint wind pushing against the window pane, the thud of my own heartbeat in my chest. I read the letter again, hoping I'd misunderstood. But there it was in black ink. Ethan had filed paperwork with the county, trying to move the property title under his name. By noon, I was standing in Ms. Patel's office, clutching that letter like a confession. She was my late husband's old lawyer, the one who'd helped us with our wills years ago. Her office smelled faintly of leather and coffee, and for the first time in days, I felt a fragile sense of control. She read the letter carefully, her brow furrowed. "Did you give him power of attorney, Mrs. Martin?" I shook my head. "No, never, I'd remember that." "Then this filing can't go through without your signature," she said, leaning back. "But it does mean he's preparing to make a move. He might already have forged documents in progress." The words "forged documents" made my stomach twist. "Can we stop him?" "Yes," she said, calm but firm. "But first we have to see what he's submitted. Once we have copies, we can prove the forgery. Until then, say nothing to him. Act as if you don't know." That was easier said than done. When I got home that evening, Ethan and Marissa were in the living room, talking in low voices. The smell of takeout hung in the air, spicy noodles and soy sauce. For a second, I stood there watching them. They looked like a couple planning their future, whispering about mortgage rates or vacations. Except that my name was the one they were trying to erase. Ethan looked up and smiled too casually. "Hey, Mom, you okay?" I forced a smile back. "Fine, just errands." Marissa gave me that sweet, polished smile of hers, the kind that didn't touch her eyes. "You should rest more, Linda. You've been looking pale lately." "I'm sure I'll manage," I said softly. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. I didn't sleep. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, every creak of the house sounding like footsteps. The next morning, I went back to Ms. Patel's office. She'd requested copies of the property documents from the county clerk. When she laid them out on her desk, my blood ran cold. There it was, my signature. My name written in my own handwriting. Only it wasn't mine. He'd done it again. Miss Patel leaned in, pointing to the strokes. "Look here, see how the L tilts differently? And the ink? It's scanned from an older form. He copied your signature from the previous year's renewal." The realization hit like a physical blow. My own son had been saving my old documents, waiting for the perfect time to use them. "Linda," Ms. Patel said gently, "we can get ahead of this. We'll file a fraud notice and lock down all property changes until further review." I nodded, my throat tight. "Do it." When I left her office, the wind was sharp, biting at my face. But inside me, something else had hardened. Fear was slowly giving way to fury. Later that week, I decided to play along, pretend I was still oblivious. I wanted to see how far Ethan would go. One evening, as he sat at the kitchen table filling out paperwork, I made him a cup of tea. My hands didn't shake this time. He smiled faintly. "Thanks, Mom, you've been quiet lately." "Just tired," I said. "Too much paperwork lately." "You know how it is?" He chuckled, not catching the edge in my tone. "Yeah, I've had my share of that. I'm handling a few things myself." "Gotta make sure we're all taken care of, right?" I nodded slowly. "Of course. You always were good with details." He looked pleased with himself, and for a brief moment, I saw the little boy he used to be, the one who'd bring me drawings of our house with hearts around it. But that illusion vanished the second Marissa walked in, whispering something into his ear. His face changed. Harder. Distant. And that's when I knew. He wasn't acting alone. 2 days later, Ms. Patel called. "Linda, we found something else. A copy of a private investment agreement under Ethan's name. He's listed your property as collateral." My breath caught. Collateral? For what? It's vague. The documents mention a partnership, a development deal with a company that doesn't seem to exist on record. I gripped the phone. "He's been scammed, hasn't he? Or he's scamming you," she said softly. That night, I sat in my car outside the house again, watching the light in Ethan's window. He was pacing, phone pressed to his ear. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his gestures were frantic, his voice raised. Marissa was behind him, clutching her robe, looking nervous. When he finally hung up, he slammed the phone down hard. Then he said something that chilled me, even through the closed window. "Once the paperwork's through, we're done here." My breath hitched. Done here? Did he mean the deal or me? Once the paperwork's through, we're done here. Those words echoed in my mind long after Ethan left the room. He didn't know I'd been outside watching through the window, my heart hammering against the steering wheel. I stayed there until the lights went out, until the house fell into silence. Done here. What did that mean? Done with the deal or done with me? By morning, I couldn't pretend anymore. I called Janet, my closest friend, someone who'd known me since Ethan was born. She worked part-time at the county records office, and I hoped she might help me quietly dig deeper. When I told her everything, about the forgery, the missing money, the property filing, there was a long pause on the line. Then she whispered, "Linda, that woman, Marissa, I've seen her before." My pulse skipped. "Where?" "At the records office. A few weeks ago. She came in asking how long it takes to finalize a property transfer if the owner is deceased." The word deceased hit me like a slap. "Are you sure?" I breathed. "Positive," Janet said. She asked about what happens if someone passes suddenly and their next of kin files for ownership. She was with a man, tall, blonde, not your son. I gripped the phone tighter, my hand trembling. "What man?" I didn't catch his name, but something felt off. "I thought about calling you that day, but..." She hesitated. "I didn't want to worry you. It took everything in me not to scream." That afternoon, I called Ms. Patel again. She listened quietly as I told her what Janet had said. "This changes things," she murmured. "If Marissa's working with someone else, your son might not even realize he's being used." Used. That word made my chest ache. Was Ethan just her pawn? Ms. Patel suggested we dig into Marissa's background. If she's done this before, there will be traces, complaints, lawsuits, maybe even arrests. By the next day, we had our answer. Ms. Patel called, her tone grave. "Linda, Marissa has a history. She's been involved in multiple fraud cases, financial manipulation, elder exploitation. Always the same pattern. She latches onto a man, convinces him to transfer assets, then vanishes once she's secured the money." I sank into a chair, the phone slipping slightly in my grasp. "So Ethan, he's her latest mark?" Ms. Patel finished quietly. "But he's complicit now. That makes things complicated." I hung up and sat in silence. My son wasn't just betraying me. He was being destroyed by someone else's greed and his own arrogance. That night, when Ethan came home, I decided to test him. He looked distracted, pacing the hallway, mumbling under his breath. His phone buzzed, and he jumped to answer it. Yeah, I know what I said. It's almost done. Just give me 2 more days." His voice was low, agitated. When he turned and saw me standing there, he froze. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "No one," he said quickly. "Work stuff." "You don't have a job right now," I said softly. His face tightened. "Mom, just stop, please." He brushed past me and went upstairs, the conversation slamming shut like a door. I stood there, shaking, every instinct screaming that something terrible was coming. Later that week, Janet called again. "You should come by the records office," she whispered. "There's something you need to see." When I arrived, she handed me a printed form, an application for property reassignment. Ethan's name, my address, and beneath it, co-signer Marissa Green. My knees almost gave out. "It's already filed? It's pending. They're waiting for one more verification. Yours. Mine." They were counting on me, not realizing until it was too late. I drove home in a daze, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Every streetlight blurred past, every thought louder than the last. When I reached the house, Ethan's car was gone, but Marissa's was parked in the driveway. I hesitated before stepping inside. The smell of her perfume hit me first, strong and sweet, like she wanted the whole house to remember her. I found her in the kitchen, going through a drawer. My drawer. When she saw me, she didn't even flinch. "Oh, Linda," she said, smiling thinly. "I was just looking for the spare keys." "Ethan said you misplace things sometimes." I stared at her. "Get out of my kitchen!" She leaned against the counter, her tone dripping with pity. "You don't have to make this hard. You've done enough. You can rest now. We'll take care of everything." I realized then she wasn't just manipulating Ethan, she was erasing me. I took a step closer, my voice low. "I know what you're doing. You've done it before. It won't work this time." Her smile faltered, but only for a second. "You're tired, Linda. Maybe you should lie down." I felt the anger rising in my chest, the same rage that had been building for weeks. "Get out," I said again, louder this time. She straightened, her eyes dark. "Careful, Linda. People might start to think you're losing it." Before I could answer, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway cut through the tension. Ethan was home. Marissa smirked. Perfect timing. The front door opened. I turned toward it, my heart pounding, and saw Ethan walk in holding a thick envelope. He met my eyes and said quietly, "Mom, we need to talk about the house." Ethan stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. His expression was unreadable, tired, almost wary. He held the thick envelope like it weighed 100 pounds. Marissa was still leaning against the counter, arms folded, a faint smirk playing on her lips. "Go on," she said softly. "Tell her." He ignored her. His eyes met mine. "Mom, we need to talk about the house." My hands felt cold. "What about it?" He hesitated, then placed the envelope on the kitchen table. This is the offer. The buyer's ready. It's a good deal." I stared at him. "Buyer?" "Mom, listen," he said quickly. "It's time to let go. The place is too much for you. Too much work. You can move somewhere smaller, somewhere easier. Marissa and I will handle everything." I couldn't even speak at first. My mind was spinning. This house, my husband's house, the home where Ethan took his first steps, wasn't just property. It was our history. I stepped closer. "You're selling my home behind my back?" "It's not like that," he said, his tone snapping with irritation. "It's for your own good. You don't know how hard things are right now." Marissa chimed in smoothly, her voice dripping with false concern. "He's just trying to protect you, Linda. You're overwhelmed." "I can see it." I turned to her. "Protect me? By forging my signature and emptying my bank account?" Ethan's face tightened. "You're twisting everything. You think I wanted to do any of that?" "I had no choice." "No choice!" I repeated. "You had every choice in the world. You just picked the wrong one." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "You don't understand. The deal's already set. If I back out now, I'll lose everything." "Everything?" I interrupted. "Ethan, you're losing me." For a long moment, he didn't answer. The room was silent except for the ticking clock and Marissa's shallow breathing beside him. Finally, he muttered, "It's too late anyway." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were several neatly printed documents, sale agreements, closing forms, even a wire transfer sheet. At the bottom of each one was my signature. Again, he'd done it. He'd forged me again. My knees nearly gave out, but I forced myself to stand tall. "You forged every one of these," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "You're not selling anything." Marissa crossed her arms, unimpressed. "Actually, Linda, you already did. You just don't remember it." Her confidence sent a chill down my spine. She wasn't bluffing. She was daring me to challenge her. Ethan looked down, avoiding my eyes. "Mom, please, don't make this harder." Something inside me snapped. Weeks of silence, confusion, and heartbreak condensed into one sharp burst of fury. I slammed the papers down on the table. "You listen to me, Ethan. You're my son and I love you, but if you go through with this, if you take one more thing from me, you'll regret it." He flinched, startled by my tone. For a moment, I saw guilt flash across his face, but Marissa reached for his hand. "Don't let her guilt you, baby," she whispered. "She's trying to control you." I looked at Ethan, searching for the boy I raised, the one who used to defend me against the world. But all I saw was a man standing beside the woman who'd poisoned him. He pulled his hand away from her and exhaled shakily. I'm going to bed. We'll talk tomorrow. He walked upstairs without another word. Marissa lingered, watching me. Then she leaned close enough for me to smell her perfume. You really should pack soon, she murmured. It'll make things easier when the time comes. Then she turned and followed him upstairs. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the papers, my pulse still racing. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger, someone broken, betrayed, but not defeated. The next morning, I called Ms. Patel. My voice was low but steady. It's time, I said. I'm ready to fight back. She didn't sound surprised. Good, but we have to be smart. We'll set a trap. Let him believe he's won. Over the next 2 days, we worked quietly. Ms. Patel drafted a decoy version of the house transfer, one that looked identical to the real thing but was legally void. If Ethan submitted it, it would incriminate him completely. I played my part perfectly. I smiled at breakfast, asked him about his plans, even offered to sign the final paperwork. I watched the guilt flicker in his eyes every time I spoke kindly. Marissa, though, didn't buy it. Her sharp gaze followed me everywhere, calculating. By Friday evening, I had one last meeting scheduled with Ms. Patel to finalize the trap. I told Ethan I'd be out running errands. But as I was leaving, Marissa appeared in the doorway, blocking my path. Running off somewhere, Linda? She asked sweetly. Just groceries, I said, forcing a smile. She tilted her head, studying me. You've been different lately. Careful. Secrets have a way of coming out. I brushed past her, my heart thudding. She knew something was off. That night when I returned, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan's car was gone. Marissa's too. I checked the kitchen table and my stomach dropped. The envelope, the fake documents Ms. Patel had given me to bait them, was gone. My hands shook as I realized what that meant. They'd found the trap and taken the bait, but who would it destroy first, them or me? The envelope was gone. I stood frozen in the kitchen, my breath caught in my throat. I had left it right there, on the table, beneath the lamp. Ms. Patel's decoy documents, the ones meant to expose Ethan and Marissa, had vanished. For a long, terrible moment, I couldn't move. My mind raced through every possibility. Maybe I misplaced it. Maybe I moved it earlier and forgot. But deep down, I knew the truth. They had found it. I felt a cold wave of panic wash over me. If they had taken the papers, they'd read them. And if they realized it was bait, everything Ms. Patel and I had worked for would fall apart. I grabbed my phone and dialed Ms. Patel immediately. She answered on the second ring. Linda? They found it, I whispered. The envelope. It's gone. Her voice was calm, steady, but I heard the quick intake of breath. When? Within the last hour. The house was empty when I got back. She paused, thinking. All right. Listen to me carefully. Don't panic. If they believe the documents are real, they'll rush to use them. That's when we'll have proof. I sank into the nearest chair, my hands trembling. But what if they figure out it's a fake? Then they'll come for you, she said quietly. And that's when you need to be ready. Later that night, the front door opened. I heard their voices. Low, urgent whispers carried through the hallway. Marissa's tone was sharp, impatient. You shouldn't have taken them. What if she notices? Ethan's reply was quieter, strained. I had to. If she's really talking to that lawyer, she could ruin everything. I leaned against the wall, listening. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. Marissa hissed, We can't let her take control. Those documents prove she agreed to the sale. Once we file them, it's over. So they did think the papers were real. Ms. Patel's plan was working. Still, the thought of them using my fake signature to complete a fraudulent sale sent a chill down my spine. Ethan came into the kitchen moments later. His face was pale, eyes darting between me and the empty table. Looking for something? I asked softly. He froze. What? The envelope, I said. It's missing. His expression tightened, but he forced a shrug. Maybe you moved it. I met his eyes. Maybe you did. For a second, I saw guilt flicker there, but Marissa's voice sliced through from behind him. Linda, you really should keep better track of your things. It's exhausting watching you lose control. She smiled faintly, and something in her tone made my stomach twist. "Where were you tonight?" I asked. "Out," she said simply. "Handling business. The kind you clearly don't understand." Ethan looked between us, jaw clenched. "Enough," he said. "This isn't helping anyone. Let's all just go to bed." He turned off the light and walked out. But I couldn't sleep. Not with the envelope gone, not with the plan hanging by a thread. The next morning, my phone buzzed at dawn. A message from Ms. Patel. "They filed the transfer documents this morning, with your signature." I stared at the text, my stomach churning. They'd done it. They had fallen right into the trap, but so much faster than we expected. A few hours later, Ms. Patel called again. "We have them," she said, her voice urgent but triumphant. "They submitted forged paperwork under your name. That's criminal fraud. I've already informed the bank and the notary office. We just need one more thing, proof that they did it intentionally." "How?" I asked. "Get them to talk," she said. "Record it. If Ethan admits he signed anything for you, that's all we need." I swallowed hard. The thought of confronting him terrified me, but there was no other choice. That evening, I waited until Marissa left for her usual business dinner. Ethan was alone in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. I walked in, holding 2 cups of tea. "Thought you might want one," I said. He looked surprised but took it. "Thanks, Mom." We sat in silence for a few minutes. The weight between us was unbearable. Finally, I spoke. "You did it, didn't you? You filed those papers." He stiffened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do," I said, my voice trembling but steady. "You signed my name. You tried to sell my home." He set his cup down hard. "It's not like that. I didn't want to. But Marissa said it was the only way. She said if we didn't get the money, we'd lose everything." I stared at him, heart breaking. "Lose what, Ethan? Your pride? Your soul?" He looked at me, truly looked at me, for the first time in weeks. "You don't understand, Mom. It's not just about the money." "What do you mean?" He hesitated, his eyes darting to the window. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Marissa's in trouble, real trouble, and I promised her I'd fix it." I froze. "What kind of trouble?" He swallowed hard. "The kind that could destroy all of us if it comes out." My heart pounded as his words sank in. What had Marissa done? And how far had my son already gone to cover it up? "What kind of trouble?" I asked again, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan hesitated, staring down at his hands as if the words themselves might burn him. "Marissa owes money," he said finally. "A lot of it," my breath caught. "Money? To who?" He rubbed his forehead. "It started with some business investments, at least that's what she called them. But it wasn't legit, Mom. It was some kind of private lending deal, and when things went bad, she borrowed more to cover the losses. Now it's a mess. She's being threatened." The room seemed to tilt. "Threatened? By who?" He looked away. "People you don't want to meet." I felt my stomach twist. "And you thought selling this house would fix it?" He nodded slowly. "It would have cleared her debt and gotten them off our backs. I just needed the cash fast. Marissa said she'd pay it back once things settled down." I leaned forward. "And you believed her?" He didn't answer. His silence told me everything. For the first time, I saw the fear in his eyes. Not just guilt, but genuine terror. My anger softened, replaced by something even heavier. My son wasn't just greedy. He was trapped, manipulated. Still, that didn't excuse what he'd done. "Ethan," I said quietly, "you forged my name. You stole my savings. You nearly cost me the only thing your father left behind. Do you realize how deep this is?" He flinched. "I know. I know, Mom. But I couldn't let them hurt her." I wanted to scream. "And what about me?" "You let her destroy everything I have." He pressed his palms to his face. I didn't know what else to do. The clock on the mantel ticked steadily in the silence that followed. I sat there, torn between fury and heartbreak. My son had always been the protector, the one who used to hold my hand at his father's funeral, promising he'd take care of me someday. Now, here we were. I took a deep breath. "Ethan, you have to tell the truth. About everything. Marissa's debts, the forged papers, all of it. Ms. Patel can help if you cooperate. He shook his head violently. No, if Marissa finds out I told you, she'll... He stopped. She'll what? I demanded. He swallowed. She'll run. And those people will come after me instead. A chill ran through me. He wasn't exaggerating. There was a genuine fear in his voice that I hadn't heard before. Before I could respond, we both jumped at the sound of the front door slamming. Marissa's heels clicked sharply across the floor. She entered the room, holding her phone, eyes cold. What are you two whispering about? She asked. Ethan stood quickly. Nothing, just talking. Really? Her eyes flicked to me. Because you look pale, Linda. Nervous, even. I forced a calm smile. Maybe I'm just tired. Marissa's gaze lingered on me, assessing. Then she turned to Ethan. We need to leave. Now. Why? He asked, confused. Because I said so, she snapped. Pack a few things. He didn't move. What's going on, Marissa? She exhaled sharply, pacing. Someone must have tipped them off. The people I owe, one of them called me tonight. They know we tried to sell the house. They said they're coming for the money by tomorrow. Ethan's face drained of color. Tomorrow? I stood slowly. You can't run from this forever. Marissa spun toward me, her voice trembling with fury. Stay out of this. You don't know what you've done. Me? I said coldly. You forged my name. You stole my home. You dragged my son into your mess. And now you expect sympathy? Her eyes flashed with panic. You think you're clever, don't you? You and that lawyer? But you don't understand who you're dealing with. For the first time, I saw something in her face I hadn't before. Not arrogance, not triumph. Fear. Ethan stepped between us. Marissa, we're not running. I'll fix this. She turned on him, desperate. You can't fix this, Ethan. They'll kill us both if we don't pay. The word kill hung in the air like smoke. My heart hammered in my chest. I'd thought this was about greed, manipulation, but this was something else entirely. Something darker. Marissa paced again, her voice rising. We need that money tonight. I don't care how. Sell your car, take what's left in your account. Do something. He hesitated, torn between us. Marissa, listen to me. Running won't help. She glared at him, her voice breaking. You'd rather stay here and die? I stepped forward, my voice firm. No one's dying. You're both going to tell the police everything. Every name, every detail. Marissa froze. Her eyes narrowed. You already called them, didn't you? I said nothing. She looked at Ethan. Betrayal written across her face. You told her, she hissed. You told your mother everything. Marissa. Before he could finish, she bolted toward the hallway. Marissa, Ethan shouted, chasing after her. I ran after them, my pulse racing. By the time I reached the front door, I saw her car's headlights flare to life. Tires screeched against the pavement, and she was gone. Ethan stood on the porch, his face pale in the cold night air. She's gone, he whispered. And if what she said is true, they're coming here next. I looked out into the darkness beyond the driveway, my heart pounding. Were we about to face Marissa's ghosts, or something far more dangerous? The headlights cut through the darkness, then vanished down the road. Marissa was gone. Ethan stood frozen on the porch, the night air trembling around us. I could hear his breath, shallow, uneven, as if each exhale carried the weight of years of regret. I wanted to speak, but there were no words left. Inside, the house was cold and silent. I locked the door, double-checking every latch, though I wasn't sure what I was protecting anymore, my home, or what little was left of my heart. That night, neither of us slept. Every sound made us flinch, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, even the faint rustle of wind outside. But morning came as it always does, whether we're ready or not. At dawn, my phone buzzed. It was Miss Patel. They found her, she said softly. Marissa tried to withdraw the forged funds. The bank froze the transaction and the police intervened. I sank onto the couch, my hand trembling. Is she? She's in custody, Ms. Patel replied. They have enough evidence to charge her with fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. And Ethan, she hesitated, he'll need to give a full statement. If he cooperates, he might avoid serious charges. I looked at my son. He was sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. The same boy who once brought me flowers after school now sat there, broken, ashamed. It's time, I said quietly. He nodded, eyes glassy. I'll do it, Mom. I'll tell them everything. 2 weeks later, we stood side by side in the courthouse. The air smelled of old wood and disinfectant. Reporters whispered in the back row, their pens scratching furiously as Marissa entered in handcuffs. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her confidence gone. When her eyes met mine, there was no hatred left, just exhaustion. The prosecutor presented the evidence: the forged signatures, the falsified bank records, the wire transfer trail. Every piece of proof that once made me feel helpless now became my weapon. And then Ethan spoke. He told the court everything: how Marissa manipulated him, how she used fear to control him, how she convinced him to betray his own mother. His voice shook, but he didn't stop. When he finished, there was silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The judge leaned forward, her tone firm but not unkind. Mr. Clark, you have made grave mistakes, but your willingness to come forward speaks volumes. Let this be a lesson for all of you that greed and deceit destroy everything they touch. Marissa was sentenced to 3 years. Ethan received probation and mandatory counseling. It wasn't the revenge I had once dreamed of, but it was justice. And more importantly, it was truth. A month later, the house felt different. Lighter, somehow. The air no longer carried tension. It carried peace. I walked through each room slowly, tracing my fingers along the walls that had witnessed so much: love, laughter, betrayal, forgiveness. The bank had officially restored ownership to my name. Ms. Patel called it a victory. I called it survival. That evening, I stood on the porch as the sun dipped behind the hills. The sky glowed amber, and a gentle breeze brushed against my face. Ethan joined me quietly, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Still feels strange, he murmured. Being here, after everything, I looked at him. It'll take time, he nodded. I don't expect you to forgive me, I smiled faintly. Forgiveness isn't a gift I give you, Ethan. It's something I need. For myself. He looked down, tears glinting in his eyes. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. I reached over, resting my hand on his. Start by being honest with yourself. For a long moment, we stood in silence. The cicadas hummed in the distance. The air smelled faintly of rain, and the world, for once, felt still. I thought of everything I had lost and everything I had found: strength, clarity, freedom. People always say betrayal changes you. They're right. It hardens you in some ways. But if you're lucky, it also opens your eyes. I wasn't the same woman who once trembled at her son's words. I was someone who had looked into the darkest corners of family, love, and survival, and found her way back to the light. Now, when I passed that framed photo of Ethan as a little boy, the one with jam on his face and sunlight in his hair, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel hope. Because even broken families can heal. Slowly, painfully, but honestly. This was my story. Don't forget to subscribe.